measures to deal with the impact of agriculture on the environment may have unintentional negative effects on rural communities. That's according to Mayo Sinn Féin Deputy Rose Conway-Walsh, who voiced her concern after the launch of the EU Biodiversity Strategy 2030. The aerospace TD says biodiversity land designations risk reducing returns for farmers, depopulation of rural areas and land abandonment as the indigenous farm business becomes unviable. The Mayo TD claims our experience of such land designations across the region is marred by the lack of consultation and the failure to deliver on compensation promised in the Habitats Directive of 1997. Deputy Conway-Walsh told John Morley that farmers and rural dwellers must benefit from the economic value of biodiversity in this country, estimated at between €2 and €3 billion.
Well, I'm talking about the unintended consequences of the further land designations that are proposed. Now, these are proposed under the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030. And what it is, it's a widening of the designations that are already there. So it's increasing the area, but it's also deepening it so that there would be escalating the category of designation to strictly protected. And what I'm saying is that we need to be very cautious here of these unintended consequences, because it can lead to depopulation of rural areas, to land abandonment, and the indigenous farm business becoming unviable. And that is the problem. That's why we need to be alert to it.
I suppose on the opposite side of things, is it not good to see these areas of land being conserved for, I suppose, biodiversity and wildlife, and that maybe we need to move more towards a nuclear settlement rather than dispersed living settlements?
Absolutely, but you see, our experience here, John, of designations here in the West and in Mayo is marred by the lack of consultation and the failure to deliver on the compensation that was promised in the Habitats Directive of 1997. So there's a mistrust between farmers and the people who are making these decisions, because farmers haven't been consulted properly. So we end up here with large tracts of land which are designated SAC, SBA and NHAs, and the ever-increasing burden of compliance on farmers and landowners, while at the same time they see a reduction in their incomes. And I've said before, it absolutely sucks the joy out of farming, because it means that farmers have to spend so much time with compliance and inspections and bureaucracy that they haven't time to enjoy what farming should be all about, the way that it was enjoyed for generations here. Of course, it also means economically, like that restricting planning means that farmers who could once sell a site to provide for their pension or to get their children through college can no longer do so. And it's not only the designated areas, John, it's also the buffer areas. And what they're proposing, well, some of the buffer areas you see are up to 15 kilometres. And there's consequences for that in rural areas in terms of restriction of developments that are needed. So a balance has to be achieved, but there has to be proper consultation and there has to be compensation. You know, this cannot be done, again, as a top-down activity.
You do worry that there are far-reaching economic impacts on this?
Yeah, because it means that there won't be able to be development in these areas or in the buffer zones. So, you know, what we need here at this moment in time is further investment in farming and in food production and support for the local fishing industry, and we need to be encouraging new business startups and maximising the use of our natural resources like the seaweed and stuff for job creation, and the development of, you know, wind and wave energy projects as well. And what I'm concerned about is that if we have too many restrictions on the land, or the restrictions that are proposed, and then we won't be able to do that. We are starved of investment here in the West. We're starved of investment to combat coastal erosion and the flood protection stuff that's needed as well. We absolutely recognise that we're in a climate crisis, but we need to be able to, do that in a way that's all inclusive and to tackle that. You know, the EU Biodiversity Strategy cites the principle of equality, and that includes the respect for the rights and the full and effective participation of indigenous people and local communities. It's explicitly said, but our past experience tell us a different story. So the top-down diktat can no longer be tolerated. There has to be a genuine partnership approach with a fair distribution of the money. I mean, this whole biodiversity and all that, which absolutely I welcome, but it has an economic value estimated in this country alone of between 2 and 3 billion. But farmers and rural areas have to benefit from that. What we cannot allow to happen is that we take all the restrictions and everything like that, and then you have big business who can continue on and pollute and do basically whatever else that they need to do. It gives them a free pass in terms of their responsibilities in addressing the whole climate change crisis. So there's a lot to be done. John, I do want to as well commend the INHFA for the valuable work that they have done around this and the analysis they have done of the biodiversity strategy. I think it's awful important that we look at these things from a perspective of the type of small farming that we have here in Mayo and hill farmers as well, so that our futures are protected and that we work together in a way that will increase incomes of farmers and of people living in our communities rather than decreasing them as has happened heretofore.
And that's Mayo Sinn Féin TD Rose Conway-Walsh.